Alright guys, today we are going to be reacting to this interesting video about Europe and Germany, I guess. Being too old. I know the birth rate is declining in Europe. I don't know if that has to do with that. I don't know if that has to be the reason why. But we're going to simply jump in and react to this. Make sure you like, subscribe, share my content. I'm going to really appreciate it, guys. Let's jump in.
It's a population pyramid for the European Union. It shows the percentage of the population at different stages of life, the percentage of people within the retirement bracket, the people that are of working age that support the elderly population through their taxes, and the youngest, ranging from late 20s to teenagers and children. A population pyramid is one of the most robust visuals for understanding society because it's one of the clearest for identifying a particular stage of development in a country. This pyramid shows that Europe's fertility rate is declining. The share of Europe's population that is old is increasing, and the share of the population that is young is declining. And I think it needs to be abundantly clear to people why continued quick decline in fertility rates is a problem and why
not
it's
a game.
particular problem for Europe. Societies move through demographic stages. Stage 1 is when death and birth rates are both high. Pre-industrialization, this was the reality for most of human society throughout history. Stage 2 is when death rates begin to fall, but birth rates remain high. General standards of living improve, which reduces the death rates, but high fertility still seems economically useful. The more children, the more potential providers when you're older. Stage 3 is when birth rates also begin to play catch up. This is usually the result of children having a lower benefit than they used to, and improvements in women's position in society, reducing the demand for them to bear children. Where Europe and the rest of the developed world are is around stage 4. Death rates are low and birth rates are also low, and around one half of the world's population lives in countries below the fertility rate that would keep their populations constant. Europe has a 1.53 fertility rate, and without including migration, Europe would be experiencing a population decline.
Damn.
What will come after stage 4 is unclear. Death rates will probably stay low. What will happen to fertility is something we still need to figure out. Some say it will increase back to around 2.1, the replacement fertility, while others paint a bleaker picture, that birth rates will continue to decline.
I think the
The logic is
consensus are that it might decline badly. In some countries, they're not even. Well, Germany, the last time that I checked, it's not even growing. It's just same.
Relatively simple. Old people cost money, and Europe is going to have a lot of them.
Yep.
The key measure here to understand is the old age dependency ratio, the amount of working age people that support a single elderly person. Most European state pension systems have a large part coming from a pay-as-you-go system, which means the retirement benefits of the current retirees are being financed by the people who are currently working,
Yeah.
with the expectation that future generations will finance you when you're older. Over the next couple of decades, as the amount of old people increases in Europe and the amount of young people reduce, the dependency ratio will push pension expenditures to increase. For every person in the EU older than 65 years old in 2019, there were almost 3 people aged between 20 and 64. By 2040, this ratio would fall to just 2,
Damn.
decreasing further to 1.7 people of working age for every person older
That's
than
a huge
65
burden.
years old in 2070.
Yeah, that's a huge burden, man. That means that you have to increase taxes. That's a huge burden.
Old people carry costs, much like incredibly overweight people do. You have a pool of insurance money that is spent when a person requires medical assistance.
Yeah.
Increase the amount of people in that pool that have a higher likelihood to need medical assistance, and you
Let me
can
see
expect the insurance
diabetes here, right? It's right here. Strokes. Right here, there one death. Oh, okay.
money to need to rise in turn. What makes this situation more uncomfortable is that the stage of future developments in health
Let me
technology.
see that graph again one more time, guys.
What makes
So here, right? Right here, this is the bracket that he's talking about. Damn.
this situation more uncomfortable is that the stage of future developments in health technology is relatively uncertain. If we were to just account for the age increases, we can expect public health expenditure in the EU to grow from 6.6% of GDP to 7.7%.
Damn, that's a lot of money.
However, if we saw an increasing life expectancy with little to no gains in health status for the old, we could imagine it becoming even more expensive.
Yep.
People matter
Yeah,
because
man, you can see it now. Yeah, people, you still have old people still doing bodybuilding, running, and doing arm wrestling. Like these people, Good. There's nothing wrong with that. But things are changing. Things are changing, man. We're gonna see more common 100 years old people just doing work. It's gonna be very common, guys. I'm telling you.
People produce, and people at different stages of their life produce in different amounts. Although it might be potentially a taboo topic, a declining share of the population that is young may put more pressure on the relevancy of Europe. And this video, I can assure you, will not be the only place you'll see making this argument. Europe is the oldest continent on average, and its share of global GDP is declining. There really aren't any perfect solutions to this problem. You can make older generations work longer.
There's a solution for this problem, man. There's not a solution for this problem. Of course, yes. Incentivize people to have more kids by tax incentives. I don't like when I don't like when they do videos like this and just literally just avoid the most obvious solution. Incentivize people to have more kids. Guess what? We don't have to spend 20 years with that in itself. You don't have to spend the next 20 years figuring out what could be done to fix this problem. You have to incentivize people to have more kids.
Boost migration to increase the labor force, and incentivize Europeans to have more children. But each of these solutions comes with their own set of difficulties. In 2019, Macron tried to raise the pension age from 62 to 64. However, when Macron took actions to increase the retirement age, which would have reduced the burden on the taxable class in the future, this wasn't taken lightly.
Yeah, pushback. Yep. That's what happened, man. It pushed back, yeah.
Potential solution that's much less controversial is migration. Need more people that can support the elderly population.
Yeah, but what happened with that migration? Then those kids, what happened is there's a studies on this. The kids of those immigrants, they stop having kids. See, this is the problem. I don't know why. I just simply don't know why people cannot understand that it's a cultural thing. If you bring immigrants, you're forcing the demographic of the local area to change for nothing, because then the future generation, they simply stop having kids. And what about the other countries? The demographic is gonna. So you're willing to just import immigrants from another country and just deplete the other population? Why we don't go to the obvious solution? Just incentivize the local community to have more kids, man. Just
bring in more workers. But there's a trade-off here, and there will probably not be enough migration to make a serious enough dent in the trajectory towards an aging European society. Also, the impacts of migrants is relatively unknown. And
also, it feels bad. You bringing people from other countries because you need your older population to just. It sounds wrong. It sounds wrong, guys. I might be wrong here, but it sounds wrong.
That migrants wouldn't have any impact on the burden of social programs, but in the same way that improving health technology is something that we can't exactly predict, the marginal benefits of a specific migrant and their associated impact on the tax base is also relatively unknown. In addition, arguing about whether migrants should or should not be encouraged to enter the European Union is also a relatively useless discussion because Europe might not even be in a position where they can get enough migrants to make a noticeable impact on the old age dependency ratio in the first place.
Yep.
There are other countries out there that are also facing the same problems, and they will also be on the market for a labor force that can boost the overall tax base
China's
and reduce
big
the
one,
deficit.
yep.
That's also why it should be of no surprise that the EU is reforming their migration policies in order to attract more highly skilled workers through making things like their Blue Card initiative, which is basically a European Green Card, more generous. Europeans also intimately understand that increasing support for larger inflows of migrants is probably politically infeasible and could legitimize critiques by the European electorate who are concerned that they've delegated too much authority to an institution that removes their ability of choosing who they want to come into their country or not.
Huh, interesting.
Higher shares of older populations are associated with anti-EU votes, and although the literature has been mixed on this, research by the European Commission itself has reported that there is an association between the presence of migrants from outside of the EU and a respective anti-EU vote. Obviously, the anti-EU sentiment can be mediated by the skill level of the migrant, but it does put the European Union in a potentially uncomfortable scenario. Reduce some of the pressure on its social programs by bringing in an external labor force, but risk anti-establishment sentiment. In 2019, Viktor Orban unveiled his Family Protection Action Plan, which would give potentially thousands of euros to women who give birth to enough children, offering 30,000 euros of interest-free loans that would be cancelled upon the birth of a woman's third child. Although seemingly popular among Orban supporters and also weirdly among conservative pundits in the United States, Just injecting money and hoping to produce babies is more difficult than it seems,
Yep.
and it'll probably take a while before we see any long-term impact.
Yep.
Assuming that these policies will make a significant dent, there's also an important question about which one comes first. Interest-free loans of $30,000 are by no means cheap, so can they work in time to offset the additional costs that an increasingly older population will produce? To find an answer to that question is a matter of time. The reason why Europe may face a larger problem with its dependency ratio than a country like the United States, besides the fact that the US is younger generally, is that the EU's legitimacy is still more precarious as a political institution.
Damn.
The EU Schengen area made it possible for Europeans to move between borders and is seen as an overall net positive. But the ability for Europeans to move freely between borders may also exacerbate pressures on the countries that are facing an increasingly older population. Rural regions continue to decline in population while urban regions continue to grow. And this phenomenon does not just happen within countries, but, more importantly, concerning the stability of the entire European Union, it happens between countries within Europe. As there is an outward migration of younger people to urban centers due to better economic opportunities, Central and Eastern European countries will continue to face even more demographic pressure that can weaken their economic growth and social support systems. And when that happens enough, for a long enough time, that people get increasingly concerned about their younger neighbors leaving for better economic opportunities elsewhere, the ramifications for the political institution that seems like it is accelerating that process can be huge.
I don't know what he said at the end. Literally, those last 30 seconds is just a conclusion of, hey, I'm just reporting this information, but I have no opinion on the game. Like, listen, guys, how do you fix the situation? Just run propaganda campaigns, man. Just run propaganda campaigns. I'm sorry, guys, you have to do that. You cannot keep putting yourself in a position that, yes, let's just import more migrants because we need to sustain our older population. Now, you can't do that, man. You cannot do that. It's not even okay for those countries, because now you're taking people from their own country, for your own benefit. I don't think that's okay. It's simply you have to have more kids. You have to have more kids, and I think that giving money to give money, at least as tax incentives for people to have more money, and on top of that, put a propaganda machine on top of that. It will be fixed in the next 10 years. But I don't know. I might be wrong. Let me know what you guys see in the comment section below, guys, and I will see you in the next one.